Montreal, Canada, cool. And Alexis is feeling celebratory with the hand clapping. That's great. So, if you're just joining us, put where you're dialing in from and an emoji. I love the EC emoji. Gabriella has a smiley face. All right. Houston, Texas. Smiley face. That's great. Anyone else? So who else is joining from outside of the US? Put it in the chat and let me know. Mountain View, California. Me too. I'm also in Mountain View. I am close to Costco in Mountain View. What about you, Jenya? Downtown Mountain View. That's amazing. Me too, close to Costco. Hey, we're neighbors. Me and OZ. That's great. Jimmy is dialing in from LA. Cool. I was just in Irvine over last week. Can't wait to visit Cali one day. Well, I think SoCal has much better weather than NorCal. So I flew back from Irvine on Friday, and I felt it's so cold here. I'm in LA. LA, it's so big. That's right. Okay, next question for you all. What would you like to What's a thing that you've been dying to ask about acing interviews, either now or in 2026? Let me know in the comments. What's the number one thing you want to ask or get answers to? Put it in the chat. Addressing common issues in interviews, Jimmy said. Anyone else has a burning question? Is the bluff method for L6 to L9? No. Is the bluff method for L6 to L9 also suitable for L4 to L5? Yes, absolutely. What should be the strategy? Said OZ. Okay. One last question before we dive in. If this is the first time that we're meeting each other, put 1. But if we have already met before, put 2. 1. Nice to meet you, Alexis. Nice to meet you all. I see more 1s than 2s. Wow. It's so nice to meet you for the first time. Dora said 2. That's great. Right, you asked about the bluff. That makes sense. Anyone else that I've met before? Put 2 in the comments. Is there an application one-size-fits-all strategy for product sense or analytical questions? KKG said 2. Nice to meet you. For analytical thinking and execution, there is a one-size-fits-all, which I think works pretty well 90% of the time, if not 95%. But product sense, it's not really one size fits all. And I'll go over an example in the talk later today to show you why I think it's not one size fits all. Okay, let's get started, you all. Thank you so much for coming. Because there's so many 1s in the comments, I want to first introduce myself really quickly because we're meeting for the very first time. My name is Nancy, and Nancy Chu. My superpower is in coaching and advisory. I used to be ex-Meta PM manager and Roku PM director. And when I was at Meta, I've conducted over 200 interviews for IC candidates as well as leadership candidates. Also, I think I might need to spotlight myself for the recording. Let me figure out how to do that. Spotlight for everyone. Okay. Hey, Amit's here. Hi, Amit.
Hey,
I'm also
Nancy.
going to add Amit to the spotlight. There we go. All right.
I had a little
And
technical glitch.
yes. And when I was at Meta, I used to be recruiting's go-to partner for Product Sense interviews. And so they used to add me to all the Product Sense redos. And so if you've gone through the Meta interview before, and if you've gone through like a redo of Product Sense interviews, I used to do a lot of those about twice a week. And then once a week, I would do behavioral, basically leadership and drive and execution interviews, which is called analytical thinking interviews now. So I used to partner very closely with recruiting when I was at Meta. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Amit to tell us a little bit about himself.
Yeah, I'm so glad to see all of you join today, and I'm really excited to share my perspective. And obviously, Nancy will walk you through all the tips and tricks of how to crack into these levels of the different levels of interviews from ranging from product to leadership. I'll try talking about leadership as well, but a little bit about myself. I have been with Meta for almost 5+ years, and I was in a leadership capacity. So I've done a lot of leadership and drive, and also product and product execution type of interviews. I was also managing a lot of applications while at Meta. So my superpower really is leading cross-functional teams and leading with the AI first thinking, which is the new budding theme across all the enterprises today. So we'll be happy to talk and share more about how to think through that.
That's perfect. Okay, so I see a question in the chat from Christina. Is this relevant for non-FAANG interviews in product? And yes, there is. And also, I have a little image coming up in about a minute to show you where our clients have landed offers from, and it's not just FAANG. Question from D, how are redos different? So they're the same. They just sometimes they're not able to get a signal in the very first interview. And because there's not enough signal, they can't advance you to the second round yet. And so sometimes they would offer redos. Okay, so I'm so glad that you guys are here with Amit and I because our mission really is to empower leaders, specifically from L6 to L9 levels, to not just land in top tech faster, but also after getting into top tech, lead with more presence and thrive with more calm, especially because it's so chaotic now. And in order to make better decisions and deep decisions and strategic decisions, you really have to stay calm under pressure and under chaos. And that's why Amit and I have been so passionate in doing this work because it adds real tangible values to everyone's day-to-day lives, starting with landing offers faster. And specifically, if you're here interested about Meta and Google, in the past 12 to 18 months, we've helped clients land 11 Meta offers, one L5, seven L6, and three L7, and then four offers from Google, two L5s and two L6s. And we also have one pending right now at Google at the LA level. It hasn't landed yet, and so we're just giving you a really early data point. So super happy with the clients that's landed Meta and Google offers so far. And to Christina's question, is this relevant for non-FAANG? And the answer is yes, because using the same communication technique, not just interview technique, but communication techniques, we have helped clients land offers from not just Meta and Google, but Microsoft, Cisco, Walmart, Tesla, Stripe, Intuit, NVIDIA, Glean, Retool, Apple, and Tubi, as well as health tech companies and AI startups so far year to date in 2025. And the levels have been staff, principal, GPM, director, and VP of product levels with total comp up to 1.2 million. And there is one that is pending right now. It hasn't landed yet. That's likely going to go above 1.2 million. And so when that lands, Amit and I will be sharing learnings and advice on our LinkedIn. So make sure you follow us to wait for those learnings and wait for those updates. And the reason why Amit and I do these monthly roundtables is because we repeat the same strategies week after week for multiple clients. And we actually have a selfish reason. One is because we want to just, when the clients enroll with us, we want to just dive right in and hit the ground running. And so we actually want more of the advice and more of the recommendations out there as much as possible so that we could just jump right in and do the real work from the get-go. And so it turns out it's a win-win for all of us. We want to show up for you so that you get all the recommendations. And then if you do decide to work with us, we can hit the ground running. And that's why we've been doing these roundtables every month. I've been doing it for the past 2 years. So super excited to see new faces here also today. And our goal really is to help you shift from mindless prep to more intentionality. And intentionality is so important because now we're overwhelmed with all the advice and overwhelmed with all the discussions that are happening on the internet, on AI, on ChatGPT and whatnot. Intentionality is the needle mover technique that is going to help you shorten your time to offer because we don't want anyone to be stuck in the job search cycle for longer than they need to. So our goal really is to help you shorten that time because the opportunity cost, especially for L6 to L9 offer, is real. And so I'm just curious, if you were to calculate the opportunity cost of a L6 to L9 offer, where you're targeting 500K, 1 million, up to 2 million TC range, what would your opportunity cost be? So take a second, let us know in the chat. I see a lot of questions in the comments, and we'll have time at the end for Q&A, so no worries there. 100K to 300K in terms of opportunity cost. Depends on the time spent. Yes, I agree with you, EC. The longer it is, the higher it is. That's right. So if the opportunity cost is 1 week, what would that be? We could do a quick back of the napkin math, and it comes out to be about 10K to 20K to 20K every week in terms of the opportunity cost. And so the cost is real. So Amit and I really want to help you shorten the time to offer so that if him and I could just help you land that offer 1 week sooner, you would come out 10K to 20K to 40K ahead just from decreasing the time to offer alone. And that's why we're here. And so in prepping for this roundtable, which is the last roundtable of the year because November and December, we won't be having any more roundtables. So this is the last roundtable of this year. We want to set some goals. And everyone is familiar with the crawl, walk, run categorization of setting goals and strategies. I'm using the same framework. In terms of our long-term goal for all of our friends and all of our clients, Amit and I really want to help you lead with presence and thrive with more calm at your dream company, right? That's our long-term mission and long-term goal for individuals as well as teams, right? And in order to run, we actually need to walk first. And our walk goal is to shorten your time to offer because we don't want anyone to waste interviews. We know that interviews are not super easy to come by these days. So we want to help you show up prepared, not waste any more interviews, and then shorten that time to prep. But today, specifically for this roundtable, we also have a very short-term focus goal, and that is the crawl goal. And that is to just help you get more clarity on what good looks like for us. And that's the goal for this roundtable today. And why is clarity important? It's because if you look at the success formula for any type of success, it really just comes down to three variables: clarity. And after you have clarity, you would know what the right actions to take are. Not just any actions, right? But the right actions. And that's how you shorten the time. And so we want to give you information so that you walk away with a higher degree of clarity than before you dialed in today. So, super excited to dive in. And one of the easiest ways to help you get clarity is just to talk about some of the assumptions that we might be making right now. And I have a short example to go through for product sense, and then I'm going to pass the mic over to Amit to tell us about some best practices and advice for behavioral and leadership interviews. So with that, I'm gonna also take a peep in the comments. What questions and what assumptions are you making right now about product sense? Put it in the chat and let me know. I have two assumptions to go over today. But let me know what assumptions you might be making right now on product sense. Assumption: it is one of the most important interviews, more important than execution. Responses has to be well structured, says Stephanie. Collaborate with the interviewer, Sophia says. Operate as if you're the PM for the product, yes. Understand the market landscape is crucial. User segmentation is key. What's your favorite product and how would you improve it? We could talk about that too if we have time. Not an assumption, but a question. Why is product sense necessary at the L7 or L8 level, and does it look different? And is it based more on past experiences? Amit, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, absolutely. Product sense is necessary for a product manager, period, whatever level you're coming in. I think when you go through the drill and understanding and appreciating the structure of product sense, you would start understanding what it really means to go from idea to an experiment to scaling it out as a product which scales to billions of users, right? So that applies to everyone coming into Meta in this role of product management. So it's a way of how PMs operate at Meta and Google. I mean, it's not a choice whether it's 7 or 8 or 5. It is how the fabric of PMs are made. That's how I would say it.
Neha has a question. As you go higher in level, it's more about the business and P&L than feature rollouts. And that's true. That's true. And I would say having good product sense can help with that because it drives ultimate business outcome and not just feature rollouts. So I'm going to take everyone through a quick thought exercise to demonstrate some of the assumptions that we might be making right now. Starting with the first assumption, which is in order to prep an ace product sense interviews, I will need to do X mocks a week. Now, why do you think this is an assumption and not a ultimate truth? Put it in the chat and let us know. Quality matters more. Yes, I agree with D. It's not deliberate practice, says Anthony.
Yeah.
More practice doesn't always mean improvement. That's right. We do want to practice. That's a given and that's a no-brainer. One of our clients who just recently, he's at Meta now as L6 PM. He said that he wasted a lot of time doing a lot of mock interviews, and that's because you don't always get paired up with someone who could really help. And when you're kind of practicing with someone who is not calibrated or not as calibrated or not as well prepped as you are, you become the person who's adding more value to the mock interview, right? So ideally you want to practice with someone who's more prepped than you. Then you walk away with a lot of value. But then the person who is more prepped and more calibrated would walk away with not a lot of value. And so definitely quality over quantity is very important when it comes to some of the assumptions that you might be making when you're planning your job, your product sense and interview prep in general. And number two assumption that I'm hearing a lot right now is AI is calibrated to give me a good answer. So put it in the chat, let me know why you think that I think that this is an assumption and not ultimate truth. Because of hallucination, yes. AI increases your mean, but not the ceiling. It's definitely a very good starting point, but it's a starting point. What does that mean? That it's a good starting point. It isn't trained enough. Um, it could be trained enough, but it also depends on how deeply it's actually trained. And I haven't seen one that is deeply trained. And I'll walk through an exercise right now. Okay, so because I'm going to share some slides that have more words in it, I'm first going to just spotlight myself for this discussion, and I'll bring Amit back for the second half of the roundtable on behavior interviews. All right, so let's talk. I'm hearing some echoes, so please go ahead and mute your microphones. All right, so let's talk about why sometimes AI doesn't always give you the best answer. I have an example prompt for us today, which is using this example, design a product to help people learn new skills. And I want to show you what AI's answers are, and then the human answer, which is, in this case, the human is me. So I want to walk through this exercise right now. And in the meantime, I also want you to think about how you would approach this question, okay? So here's what AI said. It came up with 3 segments: students, working professionals, and retirees. Now, on the surface, it might look like AI only focused on demographic as a way to come up with segments. But in the context of learning, these segments are also motivations based. So students have a different motivation for learning compared to working professionals, compared to retirees. So even though on the surface it's only demographic, I actually think AI did a okay job here coming up with 3 segments with 3 different motivations. And AI picked the second segment of the working professionals, 25 to 45-year-old for career advancement. And the reason why AI picked this segment is because this is a segment that is the most time constrained and they need flexible learning options because they're always struggling to find time, right? They cannot be consistent. And if you're not consistent, you can't really learn very well, right? And that's created this symptom where there's a lot of courses being abandoned halfway through. So that's the reason why AI decided to focus on this segment to solve this problem. And then it came up with these 3 solutions: bite-sized lessons, progress tracking, gamification, and then partner with experts, and then using AI to come up with personalized learning paths, right? So on the surface, AI sounds reasonable. It hits all the frameworks. It's very structured. But there's something missing in this picture. What do you think that is? Take a second, collect your thoughts, and let me know in the comments. What do you think is missing? And I'll put this solution slide back up. Logic, me see. It's very generic. That's right. It's very generic. Proposed solutions are not unique and already exist in some format. That's right. And so a lot of people say that they have received feedback where their solutions are not creative enough, right? And here's an example where AI gave you solutions that kind of make sense. It's very structured, but still it's not very creative. It's very generic. The problem though is not that AI is not creative. We know AI is very creative, right? So that's not the problem. The problem is because the problem identification upfront at this stage is generic. And so it's not that you're not good at creative solutioning. It's probably because the problem identification is too generic. If you're too generic upfront, it's going to lead to generic solutioning, as demonstrated by this AI answer here. So, what can we do to be less generic? As the human, I would ask, is people abandoning online courses actually a problem, or is it just normal? So think about that for a second. Maybe people abandon the courses because the courses are not very important. Or maybe they already got what they needed and moved on. Or maybe life happens and so we don't really need to take another course, right? So the real question, which is a more human question to ask, is when would a course being abandoned actually be a big problem? So take a second and think about what that means. When is it a big problem to abandon courses or abandon learning? This is an example on how you could think more deeply in the problem identification stage. So in the interest of time, I'm going to share with you what I've already thought through. So an example of a use case that causes a big problem in abandoning learning is someone who just got laid off. They're terrified that they don't have relevant skills for the current job market. And yes, abandoning a course is disappointing, but more importantly, though, it's reinforcing their fear that they can't change the situation, right? This is when the problem becomes a real problem. And here's another example. It's a single parent feeling stuck because they've been in the same role for 10 years. They're watching the younger colleagues get promoted, but these are single parents, and so they only have 30 minutes after their kids go to sleep to try to change the trajectory, right? So this is an example where the first stab at taking at segmentation is not wrong, right? It's not wrong that we want to focus on the working professionals, but there's more to it than that. So let's think one step further, let's go deeper. This is what deeper thinking could look like for you in an interview setting. So if we were to use this type of persona and we were to summarize it, it would look something like this. We're not just talking about the 25 to 45-year-olds who want to upskill. That is true, but that's too generic. We're talking about the people who are experiencing real career anxiety in their specific life context where the stakes are real and the stakes are painful. And so the problem that we should solve should start with you asking a deeper question, which is when does not learning lead to real consequences that compound over time? And what life circumstances would make learning urgent and not a nice to have, right? This line of thinking is going to help you get to a problem that is not generic, a problem that is more urgent. And that's going to help you create solutions that are more intentional. And that's how you stand out, whether you're L6 and above or not, right? And so what are people really afraid of? It's not finishing a course, right? That in itself is not really a problem until it actually is a problem. So the actual problem is FOMO. It's being left behind. It's being irrelevant. It's failing to provide for their families, right? That's the real problem. And so how can we solve for that? You want to find the crux of the problem. just because people do something or they don't do something, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that it's a real problem. And so when, where, for whom does this behavior cross the threshold between mild, mildly annoying to real pain with real consequences? And that's a line of thinking that can help you find the crux of the problem. The mental model that I recommend is which of these problems can be solved by vitamins versus painkillers. We want to solve for the painkiller problem. Our solution should be a painkiller, should not be a vitamin. And let's work backwards from suffering. What are people really afraid of, and what happens if they don't solve this, right? These are the principles that will help you in not just this particular interview prompt, but for other prompts as well. And this is not something that AI, even though it's quote unquote trained or quote unquote calibrated, AI is not that good at thinking more deeply unless you've prompted a few times, right? So that's a deep thinking muscle that has worked very well in helping our clients stand out because they're not just thinking generically. So we want to build for the painkillers and not the vitamins. And my spicy take is that being structured in the product sense interview is not the real test, but deep thinking is. Right? So being structured is kind of just a no-brainer thing. It checks the checkbox, but that's not enough. And L4 and L5 PMs, they can execute frameworks very, very well, and they show that they can think very structurally. But L6 to L9 tend to question the foundation. They think more deeply. They demonstrate strategic judgment about what's actually worth building in the first place and not just taking the problem as surface value. So that's what I would say in how to stand out in product sense. Deep thinking is what will make you sound strategic, and it's not just about being structured. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to pass the mic over to Amit to tell us how to ace behavioral and leadership interviews. I'm going to spotlight Amit and then
Thanks, Nancy. Thank you
remove
very much.
myself. Go ahead.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, I think I'll take on from where she left, which is thinking deeply. So today's discussion that we are having is going to be around principles of leadership thinking, decision making, and also product execution that applies in a very high impact role. By the way, I get this a lot where people ask me, is leadership and behavioral, are they synonymous? They're not, right? As you can tell, leadership interviews or leadership thinking is more about how you are influencing, inspiring, and driving outcomes. Versus if you think about behavioral, it is how you're reacting under certain circumstances and how you are dealing with conflicts and failures and under pressure and staying resilient and all that, right? So that's behavioral. Leadership is also about mobilizing others and making smarter choices under ambiguous situations and driving meaningful results. I will emphasize on meaningful results because not every problem that you see is going to drive the right impact and metric for the organization and for you, right? So being able to see through which is the right problem, which has a maximum ROI, is also a leadership way of thinking. With that, I will talk about fundamentally 5 principles that if you can manage to bring out in every story that you tell as part of your leadership and behavioral interviews, I think you can ace it. Uh, Even if you can hit on 2 or 3, I think that's good enough as long as your storytelling is hitting the spot. Those 5 principles that I look for every time I used to interview is, number 1 is the candidate, whether it's 6 or 8 or 9, whatever it is, are you driven by impact, scale, and are you metrics aware? What does that really mean? In companies like FAANG, which is Google's and Meta's of the world, there's a lot that happens and PMs takes the central role, right? You are looking through a lot of use cases, a lot of work related actions are happening around you. You are sitting at the hot chair almost all the time. How do you cut through all that? And what are you looking for when you're picking up a problem, right? So I'll give you an example. For example, for Instagram Reels, we could say that the important thing is number of reels created in a day. Or I could say, in addition to that, I also want to look at the sessions duration per daily active, right? The two metrics are equally important. One is driving scale, and one is driving deep engagement and retention, right? And when you add to the product management way of thinking, you are designing these reels through multiple channels, through feeds, through profiles, through Instagram itself. So you are looking at, if done right, it can have multiple channels of scaling out, right? So that all 3 billion people on the planet are using these products and scaling. So you have both impact, scale, and you are very much web metrics aware because you're going to calibrate how you're performing on these. So that's one. Second, that you get calibrated on is XFN collaboration. XFN is all your cross-functional teams that you work with day in and day out. In companies like Meta and Google, you are not the only one driving results. You are a big herd. You are a big team which has people from different functions working with you towards a common goal. You'll have UI, UX, engineering, data science, researchers. All those functions are going to be working with you towards a common goal. So how do you really influence others to look through the common lens and drive authority without being in the authority chair? That's what XFN collaboration is. The third one, which I love most, is how do you prioritize and cut through the noise? I mean, if you think about what has happened in the last year, year and a half, so much disruption just in the AI space alone has happened, which is making you think every day something new is coming out. How do I manage through all the noise that's coming in, making sure I'm continuously working towards a problem that has the maximum ROI? As you know, we had ChatGPT and then Meta AI launched, and then you had DeepSeek, which now then allowed people to think about reasoning and chain of thoughts, and all those things happen, right? So, how does that impact a product management function and the way you're thinking about your problems? Okay. The fourth aspect, which is ability to take risk and yet launching. This one is also a favorite of mine because this really tests how bold of a PM are you and how much do you operate with less data that is in front of you and you making more big, bolder bets based on your experience and what you're seeing in the market. I like to call it like a PM syndrome because there will be times when you will see yourself in a situation where when a competition has launched something and you don't have too much time to do your experimentation, gather all the data. So you have to act very quickly. In those circumstances, you don't have much data to look at. You really have to react and launch something, right? There are also times when you, as part of, as you'll understand during product sense interviews, that if you do a good job in the product in user segmentation and pick up the right persona that you want to go after, you really don't have to boil the ocean from day one. You can still launch for that specific persona, that specific feature, and really don't have to do all the experimentations day one. You can improvise while being on the field. So that is more about you able to take risks and hence keep launching and moving forward. The last one is how, as a PM in a leadership capacity, how do you up level and mentor others around you and up level the culture of where you're operating, right? And that comes when you are leading with example, you are a high performer, and you people are looking up to you to learn every day from you. So those five elements are super critical. I'll add one more, which is a new one that is coming into a trend these days is how much are you a AI forward thinker? Or how much do you think about AI when you think about solutioning or when you think about a problem? So AI first thinking is also taking a central stage when it comes to PM function. And you'll see a lot of people talk about not just traditional way of solving problems, but now throw AI in there and can you figure out something new, right? And that really comes from you shifting your thinking from 1.1 thinking to 2.0 thinking, which is more about not thinking about band-aids, but more thinking about can I roll out a new feature of its own because I'm seeing so many problems. With that, I think I'll pass it back to Nancy.
Great. I love the 1.1 thinking, up leveling to 2.0. And a lot of product teams right now are thinking about AI band-aids, but that's not AI first thinking, right? So You will see over time that we would start to see the new trend reflected in the interview process. And we can help you because every recommendation that we see on the internet, whether it's from Amit and I or from any other sources, you would see that it really only takes about 20% of the time or resources to learn the new knowledge. At this level, it doesn't take that long to learn a new knowledge. What takes time is the application of that knowledge, and that's the 80% of the time. And what we've seen in the past is the 80% part is the part that could take a lot of candidates 6 months, 9 months, or even more than that on their own. And one of the fastest ways to accelerate your time to offer, which you already know is very costly, is to increase the clarity on your gaps and not just to boil the ocean, right? You just need clarity on what your gaps are, and we focus on the gaps and only the gaps so that you know precisely how to improve just the gaps that are specific to you. And that's how you shorten the time to offer because we know that shortening the time to offer is decreasing your opportunity cost. And at this level, we're looking at 10K, 20K, 40K every single week in terms of the opportunity cost. And that is why Amit and I have been so passionate because we're making a real difference. And so with that, this is a ask us anything. So I know that there's a lot of comments, but if there's one that you're dying to know, I want you to come off of mute and just ask the question if you're willing. So who wants to go first? What can we do for you?
Hi, my name is Aisha. Thank you so much for your time. I did have a question. I loved how you focused on deep thinking. I find that's not as much of a challenge for me as much as structuring my thoughts and being able to translate what I'm thinking in a coherent framework on the fly. And so can you give how do you do that? Can you give an example of what deep thinking with structure looks like and deep thinking without structure looks like?
Amit, do you want to go first?
Um, so I think deep thinking really comes in my personal opinion. I think I love the product sense structure to be honest, because that I keep saying that to our team as well as if you look at the product sense structure, which starts really by looking at what the problem is, what the competition is, what the segments are, problems, etc., and then tying it all to your product goal, that actually applies to even when I'm thinking as a leader. Because all my responses, if I can follow that structure about what is my goal really, what does the company care for, why am I in that shoe to solve that problem, right? That is the deep thinking. If you do that, and it's very structured, by the way. So if you do that, it gives you a structure to anchor on every response that you give. If I didn't have the structure, I would be like, okay, there is the problem I'm going to solve for, but I had team and this and that, but I tend to forget either what the goal was, or I tend to forget where the problem really was, or I would tend to forget what the impact and scale was. So a structured way of thinking really comes across with practice, comes across in your the way you're narrating storytelling as well. That would be my answer.
I'll add to that. And for me, I'm not a super structured person, and Amit knows, and we are different in our styles and uh, how I simplify the structure because sometimes depending on what structure you're told to use, there could be 6 different steps or 8 different steps, and that's not helpful for my ADHD brain. So for me, really, there's only 2 steps in a structure. The first one is the problem space. The second one is the solution space. So in the problem space, we're really just trying to find the right problem to solve. And then in the solution space, we're working with the teams to solve it the right way. And so we have to move from problem space to solution space in that order, not the other way around. And so the easiest way to be structured is to know that I have to first on the problem first. You could apply deep thinking throughout the interview, but just know that you're sticking with the problem space first before moving to solution. And that probably will help too.
That's right. I'll add to that. I think I remember during my Meta interview days, I used to probe interview the candidates on why do you think that problem was important? And believe me or not, 60, 70% people would stumble because they just have a story that they have prepared. They have not thought deeply about what that problem was and why did it matter to both the company and to them, right? So that is what is deep thinking.
Hopefully that answers your question. Anyone else?
Hi, Nancy, and
Hi,
hi, Amit.
EC.
Hello, hello. No, I just want to say hi. Honestly,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I wrote a comment there, essentially just about like a bit of my process, like the way it's been going, type of thing. And I noticed, I guess, some of the hurdles that I guess, been experiencing, and yeah, just learning throughout the process. I think personally for me, um, I didn't know how serious this was. Essentially, like this whole procedure. I think for me, I was just kind of absorbing and intaking a lot of ideas. But I think now that I'm more focused on, I guess, the structure and the progression of I guess these sessions, I'm going to be more focused and more product driven.
That's perfect. Yeah, thank you for coming. Also, hi. JJ has a question about team matching. So JJ said, any strategies you would recommend to in finding a team match in FAANG post-interview?
Well, there are strategies and strategies around team matching. First thing is getting into team matching is a great news. So whoever is, if you're in team matching, wonderful, congrats for that. Um, Team matching, I think it really depends whether there is one team or multiple teams vouching for you, going after you. But really, I think there is no clear strategy. It really starts with what your personal aspirations are, because the good thing is you've crossed all the hurdles and now you're sitting like a bait for people to come and get you, right? So obviously you want to look at the team you're going into. And I personally believe that if you are looking for the right team where you can grow, because everyone is driven by growth. So it starts really with the type of work they're doing, and also the not hiring manager, your reporting manager and the leadership is what I would think would be the most important to me if I were looking at. Am I going under a manager who is easy to work with, will be watching for me, looking out for my growth, etc. That to me is super important personally. And then of course there are other factors around your personal needs, which is location and all that, right? So there are ways we discuss when we discuss strategies around how to find team matching. But again, it's very, very personal driven, based on your motivations, your aspirations, and what do you want to get out of your next 6 months, 1 year, 2 year. One thing I'll call out is Meta and Google. These are companies where moving around, experiencing different teams is highly encouraged as well. So growth can happen both within the team and across teams as well. So it's a very subjective discussion.
I would say that the number one reason why people get overwhelmed and stressed out easily in team matching is that you just spent months preparing for the interview and you think that it's over. And then you go into team matching and you find out it's more and more interviews because every team matching discussion is yet another interview. And they're mostly behavioral. Sometimes you might get a technical round depending on what the team is, but they're mostly behavior interviews. And so if you had the expectation that passing the interview is the end of the journey, you would have to reset the expectation because that's not the end of the journey. And so super important to the strategy is to know that you're running a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. Every discussion is a behavior interview, even though they're not calling it a behavior interview. So treat it as such. I did write an article on this, which I already put in the comments. So do take a look and check it out. It might be helpful for you.
All right. Thank you both. That was really thoughtful. Appreciate it.
Sure. I'm just gonna go down the ordering of the questions. Sophia asks, what's an example of how AI forward thinking is being tested in interviews?
Nancy, you want me to take it?
Yeah, you could go first.
An example of AI forward thinking is it's again based on the 5 principles I said. One is how are you looking at the problem? Are you looking at a problem as a point solution problem where I'll give an example, right? And Nancy and I were in a meeting with a exec at a company, 8,000 plus people company, and they said, we believe we are AI forward thinkers, and we have all our developers focused on code quality, and they adopted Copilot, Microsoft Copilot. Great. If the goal is to increase the output of your code bases and your product quality, that's one way of thinking AI, which is give your developers the right tools. The other scalable and broader long-term thinking is if I could use the power of AI and create sort of an orchestration layer where not just the code bases, but also the logs and also your Jira stories, your business requirements, all of that connects together to bring out insights for not just the developers, but also for the product managers, for customer support, for business teams, right? That is really AI forward thinking, which wherein you are thinking of AI not just as a tactical point solution, but thinking it as something which will accelerate the overall culture and also how your company itself is operating. So that is AI forward thinking. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. So if it's a product sense interview, right? A AI-ish spin on a product sense could be you have access to, let's say, user intention data or user preference data, and you have all the funding in the world. What would you build? Right? So this is a AI product sense type of question. That's one example. And then, and kind of just like zooming out on a macro level, we know that everyone's been talking about how easy it is to vibe code now. We know that everyone is talking about you don't have to be an engineer to build an AI agent. Let's build AI agents everywhere, right? So build is no longer the bottleneck. So what is actually the bottleneck is that deep thinking, it's the product thinking, right? It's the strategic thinking. What is actually the right problem to solve before we go and solve it, right? So we're really just going more and more upstream to the thinking layer and not just the building layer. So you want to add all of that in a AI first interview setting.
I'll also add one recent experience I had around this AI thinking during interviews. A lot of time we tend to now retrofit AI into our existing answers that we have. And I try to ask, why did you have to build ML models or throw in agents to solve this problem? Did you think whether this could be solved operationally or by creating a new process instead of just dropping the word AI and ML in there, right? So be careful on, and that's what I think Nancy is referring to, that deep thinking has to be there. Just don't get into a habit of throwing AI on a problem. You've got to think whether that problem is worth solving through AI. That's really the difference.
Absolutely. I'm glad that that was helpful, Sophia. Okay, Gabriella has a question. How can a candidate intentionally turn moments of self-doubt into a strength in interviews so that confidence and humility are both perceived authentically? So the mindset I want to talk about here is there's a difference in a giver's mentality versus a taker's mentality. When we show up as a taker, we expect to take something at the end of the interview. And that usually means I want a second interview, or I want a third interview, or I want a job offer, right? So you show up with a want, an expectation at the end. That's the taker's mentality, and that's the thing that could help all of us feel very badly if we don't walk away with something at the end of it, right? The opposite mentality is the giver's mentality. So if we're just showing up to give, right, we're showing up to share our experiences, just like how Amit and I are showing up for you all today. We're just showing up to give back. Of course, we want you to work with us, but we're not attached to the outcome. We're not trying to control the outcome. We just control the inputs. And the input is us showing up, right? Us preparing to share some of our best hidden secrets with you all, right? So if we just show up and control the inputs, and show them to give, right? That's the giver's mentality that kind of lightens the load at the end of the day. We just know that we have all the inputs. We primed the inputs and it's high quality inputs. And we know that the output will come. It's just a matter of time. So that's one mindset that is very helpful. And the other one is we think that getting rejected is a bad thing, right? We think that not walking away with something tangible is a bad thing, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like how if a baby is trying to learn how to walk, it's gonna fall, right? Falling for a baby is never a bad thing. It's kind of expected, right? And so if we kind of adopt a more givers mentality and just show up to have the best conversation of the day, it might be helpful. So give that a try. Thank you, Gabriella. You can only control what you can control. That's right. Let's just control the inputs and do our best so that our inputs are high quality. Any other questions? Also, I want to say that it's so good that you're showing up. There's 59 of us on the call right now, and originally the title of this event is to jumpstart your 2026 job interview. Even though it's still kind of early, but it's really not early if you think about it, because we're already at the end of October and then Thanksgiving and then it's the holidays where we lose a lot of momentum. So I recognize all of you for showing up, and it's so good that you're showing up for yourself early on so that you can hit the ground running. Amit and I have already been working with clients who are targeting interviews in January using this time when hopefully work is not super crazy all the time, when there's code freezes happening, to put in the time, because now is actually a very good time to plan and actually apply all the knowledge that you've been collecting.
That's so right. I think this is the low time. We're entering a low time phase where I think this is the best time to prepare. And what we keep talking about deep thinking, all your awesome stories will come out when you're sitting down calmly, not really worrying about too many. Of course, the launch is happening everywhere, but deep thinking phase is Q4.
Absolutely. Swati has a question on segmentation. How is user segmentation done effectively, especially at times of pressure? Amit is super good at segmentation.
Well, I won't disclose everything here, but I'll just leave it here. Segmentation, I think it is by far one of the most critical markers in the interview. If you get a awesome segmentation, a awesome persona out during your interview, you will derive a lot of awesome problems, and hence your solutions will be really rich, right? That's where you score points. There is a way to look at segmentation every time, and so I like to fall short of saying there is a repeatability, which is the good news, that there is a way to solve segmentation, and it works pretty much every time. But you cannot lose sight of what the prompt is, and how effective and how targeted those segmentations are. Broadly, segmentations is a reflection of a persona, which has three broad elements: how you behave, what motivates you, and where do you live, what do you do, who you are, right? So there are some of the tips and tricks we discussed during our sessions, but I'll leave at that. But the good news is segmentation is crackable every time.
Absolutely. And you want to, so over time, your deep thinking muscles get stronger. And sometimes you do a first pass of the segmentation, but it doesn't really pass the sniff test, kind of like the example that I walked through. Yes, on the surface, we do want to focus on working professionals to help them learn, but it didn't really pass the sniff test. But why is that? So then you start thinking one layer deeper, and that's something that you can train and you could get faster at it, even when you're thinking on your feet in an interview setting. So a question to ask yourself is, all right, so I found this problem, and it's good that I found this one particular problem, but is it actually worth solving for? Like, how would you know that? And the answer to that is typically because it's a direct blocker to the ultimate success. So give that a try when you're segmenting. Sweta has a question. What, in your opinion, is the difference in good between 7, 8, and 9?
It is simply, I think you're on the clock, but it's deep thinking. And that shows in your responses. For example, in segmentation itself, it will start showing up how deeply you have thought about that persona. But yeah, it is deep thinking throughout.
Absolutely. Well, the thing that interviewers want to get is, do you get it? As in, because I, as a hiring manager or the hiring team, I have a gap and I need to get the signals that you get what I need. And so you don't really have to give them novels and novels of your experience. It's really just give them the enough signal so that they know that you get it. And that's very important in 7, 8, and 9 for sure. All right, so one more question for the day. Sophia's question, with holidays coming up, what's reasonable amount of time to expect to interview for before getting an offer?
You want to take that, Nancy?
Sure. I would say long range planning for corporations are typically done in November, October, November timeframe. And so in this time frame, teams and companies probably already have a good picture on the headcount that they are allocating and planning for the next calendar year. So getting an offer is no longer dependent on whether the headcount is already there, because the headcount is there. The planning is done for the most part. The bottleneck is because people are going on vacation, and so you don't really have interviewers on the ground who can interview you. But that's the bottleneck, is no longer depending on whether headcount information is there. So because people will be traveling, that means you likely won't be interviewing the week of Thanksgiving, right? Or the week of Christmas. Basically, at least 3 weeks are out in November and December.
There is another angle to this, which is I think the hiring season is evergreen, to be honest. I mean, because this is also a period where a lot of people are moving in and out because they have secured offers in other companies, so they are trying to move out. So there is also a lot of times there will be desperate hiring as well. So your chances still are very high even in this period. So I'm saying that because I've been in those shoes where all of a sudden on a high critical program, somebody's moving because they just closed an offer with Google, right? So those things will keep happening.
Absolutely. Well,
Can I
thank you
ask a
so much,
final
everyone,
question?
for joining us. Sorry, did I cut someone off?
Sorry, can I ask a final question
Okay,
if that's
go ahead.
okay? This is
Go ahead.
Neha. Hey Amit, we talked yesterday for a few minutes, and I'm here today.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
so as somebody who hasn't really started out doing the applications, I just have an interview that's coming up, but I haven't like gone full-fledged into applying everywhere. What strategies do you have to even begin this process, and to get your foot in the door? Hey, let's apply, let's get an interview. Any, words of wisdom, just kind of starting out?
I think like we spoke, right? I think it really starts with your resume and then how you are thinking, what companies are you profiling, right? Which segment are you profiling? Because interviews will be different for different companies. Because there's going to be the structured interviews like Google's and Meta's, and then there will be this behavioral storytelling type of interviews, which will be probably quite generic across the board, right? So it really starts with what your aspirations are, where are you trying to go, and what are your shortlisted companies, and then working backwards from there, it's looking at your profile, resume, and starting there. That's what my response would be.
So do clients who sign up with you is, just starting out, they don't have any interviews actually lined up? Is that how they start out with you? They sign up, they go through your program, and then
Yeah, so a lot of our clients, they understand that it takes time to prep, and so they sign up even before they get any interviews. That's one persona. And there's a second persona where they did the interview prep on their own, but they didn't make it at their dream companies. And so they know that, okay, now they have to wait 1 year to try again, which again is costly if you're targeting a company that offers much higher compensation, right? So they understand the opportunity cost. And so they enroll when they know that, all right, I'm going to make the most out of my cool down period. That would be the two most popular persona in our program. The third one is I have an interview coming up, and then they sign up. But that would be a smaller segment.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us on this Monday evening. We hope that you have a good holiday period and enjoy Halloween and then Thanksgiving. Hopefully, we'll see you soon again. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.